can call me Moxie. Today, I'll be giving an update on what's transpired since I posted my last video about entering phase 2 / the next phase of Awaken Moxie. Grab a snack if you'd like, and I'll go ahead and begin. If you've seen my earlier posts, you'd know that one of the biggest contributing factors to why I began Awaken Moxie is Unus Annus. When I bring it up or explain what it was, I tried to make it a point to mention its Markiplier, cranked gameplays, and a team of editors. To produce the quality of videos that came out of Unus Annus on a literal daily basis requires a team to make work. So yes, it's Mark, it's Ethan, it's Amy, it's their crew of editors, camera operators, guests, and many other people I'm still not aware of. For those that have never really given editing much thought, which is fine if you haven't prior, wouldn't really know just how much editing makes a video. I don't recall the exact quote, but I remember seeing a clip of Mark explaining there were times he and Ethan filmed something for Unus Annus. They would bring the footage to their editors and say, basically, hey, can you do something with this? As in, can you make this footage into something usable? Everyone involved knows that there's all these different components that come together in a collaborative process. If you look up how long does it take to edit a video? Generally, you can expect an average of 30 to 60 minutes of editing work for each finished minute of video content. So one could say it's quite time consuming. Additionally, when people look extra good in music videos, films, on stage, in photo shoots, there's again a team of makeup artists and hairstylists that are typically touching them up every 5 minutes or so. There's lighting that goes such a long way, and post-production editing can change everything. Both of these points to say, majority of the time something that's produced of excellent quality, there are far more people involved than an unknowing viewer would initially consider making it all happen. I'd like to put a pin in this thought and circle back to it later. Branching off from that, I'll tell you a fact about myself. I'm someone who watches a lot of mental health related content on social media, listening to people talk about their personal experiences, as well as checking out the medical side of things. From ADHD to autism, borderline personality disorder, quiet BPD, schizophrenia, dissociative identity disorder, PTSD, etc. Also channels like Soft White Underbelly, random hour-long life stories that pop up here and there. I find myself spending a lot of time doing this because I believe doing so helps me better understand myself, better understand others around me, and develop a better understanding of the human brain itself and how it functions. This is one thing I do love about today's social media, how these topics and conversations that were once so taboo and prevalently misunderstood are becoming more accessible, and more knowledge about these topics are spreading. As a side note, there are people that follow me that have opened up about their own personal experiences, living with things like schizophrenia, PTSD, RSD. There's always something to learn in the multitude of people you come across. So, when I pulled up YouTube one day, I saw this interview pop up in my recommended by an interviewer named Zach Sang, who I think is excellent at his job, by the way. He was with a guest named DPR Ian, and at the end of the title card, it mentioned living with bipolar disorder. Now, at the time, bipolar disorder was a topic I hadn't delved into too far yet, not for any reason in particular. I just been learning about certain disorders and things of the like one at a time and hadn't come around to it in depth yet. So because of that, upon seeing the title, I was like, an opportunity to learn. So I clicked on it and I listened to Ian speak. If you watch the interview, common takeaways I've seen that I also felt were Ian is very open on speaking about the topic of mental health and his personal experience with being bipolar, which I saw many comments being appreciative of.
He's very transparent. He'll tell you how it is. He's very open, man. Now he's just talking about him and his life, and I think this might help people, man. This is good. This might help people who resonate, who relate.
And two, I greatly appreciated the candor in how he spoke of the way he uses creativity as a means to channel these very intense feelings, while sharing how doing so can be draining, despite simultaneously being the very outlet needed for some kind of release. Directly acknowledging the destructive aspects that in part encompass both him as a person as well as his art.
It's definitely something that I'm still trying to figure out, The creative outlet source, the things that I do, it's definitely, oh my God, it is so destructive. Almost to the point where I know it's destructive, but I chase chaos in such a way where it's like it just entails me now, and I don't further ensue chaos to anybody else, which is why I think I'm so cautious and adamant to know willingly how this energy is really being portrayed. I guess influenced because, again, it's such a heavy topic, especially this next album, that if I'm not like too careful with it, I know it might send off the wrong energy, and I wouldn't like to do that, you know.
It's a balance to be both brutally honest about something while being mindful of how that honesty is being portrayed. Because if either side lacks too much, either a message is completely skewed or the impact of a well-intentioned message does more harm than good. So after listening to this interview and how Ian equated many of his life experiences to his art, I went to see his latest music video / short film. For me, it's one of the most visually articulate things I've witnessed, and there were multiple parts to it I felt very seen in. All in all, it was a wonderfully educational day for me. Learned a lot. But then, I soon discovered not only did Ian create the songs, he directed the music video, and he edited the entire thing. We're starting to tie back into the beginning topic that I put a pin in. Edited the entire thing as in to the degree of personally spending hours creating the special effects that last less than a second throughout the video. I personally had never witnessed that before. Never witnessed an expression of audiovisual art done with such quality that is so creatively unique to one individual artist.
He does most of the work, right? That I really, really respect. And then, I don't know, just like the cinematography and like all the edits and everything, the transitions, the effects, the filters or whatever, there's everything, the acting, the performance. There's even choreo inside this as well, so I was like, oof. But like, just everything all together, I feel like it's just crazy. But like, not only this, but like everything else that he's done before, I had like just mad respect for it.
When I learned that, which in turn led me to begin discovering the depth of passion behind what I was seeing and hearing, witnessing the way it was coming together in the form of expression lit a fire in me creatively. So I, like most people, am someone who draws inspiration from a whole wide array of places, and truthfully as many places as I possibly can. I started going way harder in my study of music production, which I'll talk about more later in the video. So while yes, Ian does an incredible amount of work for these productions, I'm still aware in total this is the outcome of many different talents coming together that I wanted to explore.
And my team supported me, obviously, you know, without the team there's nothing.
So I went on to learn more about Dream Perfect Regime, the company / record label attached to everything. DPR is both independent and founded by Ian, along with, I believe, Live and Scott, who I'll mention a bit more later on as well. As I learned more, it was very nice to see snippets of behind the scenes and be exposed to the amount of people coming together to bring these visions to life. So, like Unus Annus had all these people turning the wheel, for Dream Perfect Regime, it's Ian, it's Scott, it's Live, it's Klein, it's John, it's Cream, it's their stylists, it's all these dancers, stunt coordinators, camera operators, and again, many more people I'm still unaware of. I think the timing of me discovering Ian and Dream Perfect Regime is kind of universally perfect, because prior to that, I had just made the decision. I basically entered August thinking that I was going to pull back, but after these wonderful talks I had with wonderful people and just thinking about life and how it's so short, I want to even more earnestly keep going with my Awaken Moxie stuff. And I think it's so funny that I had left on this note. I just want to learn as much as I can. I want to try as many different things as I can. And the universe was like, you gonna learn today, whoopah, and smacked DPR into my awareness. So all in all, over time, it was an extremely motivational mix of witnessing the things that can be possible within one individual, as well as having a reminder of all the components that can come together and elevate an idea, transitioning into how that newly lit, passionate fire has been moving me since the last update. As I said, I've been spending lots of time learning about music production. There are people who have since curiously asked about it, some wondering if I've dropped any beats yet. What I can say is, part of this initial stage of learning is gaining more awareness of how truly vast the space of things I still need to learn truly goes. Ideally, I have an idea of the first song I'd like to create, and I've had the idea since about when I first downloaded a DAW. I initially thought I'd do my best to get the first version of this song possible out sometime in October of 2022. And boy howdy, for me, I have next to no prior musical training. I don't know chords, I'm still new to music theory, and it's my first time learning how to use DAWs. So when I realized I probably wouldn't be able to get an entire song completed by October. I was like, okay, let me shoot for 30 seconds. Let me try to make a 30-second version of the idea I have in my head. I initially envisioned the entire song to be trap, but I grew an interest in funk with a PHO. And I decided I'd like for the 30-second version to have 15 seconds of trap and switch up the tempo to 15 seconds of aggressive funk. By October, I had my 15 seconds of trap, and I didn't think I was going to be able to include the funk yet, but I still wanted to post what I had done thus far. However, that's when I learned there's another necessary step to take, and that's mixing and mastering. Without that step, my 15 seconds sound entirely different, from headphones to speakers to a phone to a computer to a car, different across the board. So this is a new area of music production I must explore. Upsides to this are, so much of me making that first 15 seconds of trap was me learning how to use the DAW, learning how to find samples, familiarizing myself with all of the effects. When I started playing around with the funk section, it was flowing a lot faster because I didn't have all of that initial program learning to do. So even though I'll need more time to learn about mixing, once I start to understand it, it's something that can continue to be implemented going forward. Another fun part of the journey has been, now when I see music producer and DJ tweets via Twitter, there's times where I'm like, I understood that reference, when they're using technical terms for their craft. I get the memes related to pushing so many buttons, working on an 8-bar loop for hours only to come out with less song than you started with. I would love to show you guys some music, but it truly might be years before I get to that point of completed projects. We'll see. Time-wise, it would be one thing if music production was the sole thing I was focusing on. But as you know, I currently do things with my OCs and occasionally gaming, both of which include editing. I personally do enjoy editing. I think the process is fun. The only drawback is editing is usually the most time-consuming part of one's content creation. So even though my reels and TikToks are short, depending on what I do with them, editing can still take a very long time. And naturally, YouTube videos take longer. There are actually a ton of games I bought during the holiday sales that I intend to show you, but I have to factor in when I'll have time to play, and more importantly, when I'll be able to edit. All this to help me express there's so much that I'd like to share with you. Music, games, concepts that are brewing steadily. For the time being, while I'm learning and being my own editor, this is the pace that I can go. In time, as more seeds are planted, I'll be able to show you more things that I'm excited for. Now, I'd like to tie all this together with some things I've learned through introspection and the flux of inspiration I've had. Growing up, I've never had one particular thing or things that I was passionate about. Some people are passionate about dance, others about becoming a doctor, some about cooking, so on and so forth. While I did well in school and took part in a few extracurriculars, I hadn't encountered nor conjured up this feeling of passion. In certain respects, it can be painful living in such a way. I remember I had a journal entry I wrote once towards the end of high school, beginning of college, to the effect of wishing I could be consumed by passion, wondering what is that like? You hear people talk about getting swept up in it, feeling very alive. Also, I'm someone who rarely dreams when I sleep. It's usually a blink of black and then I'm conscious again. There are times I wish my body didn't have to sleep because I think of all the hours I'd have time to do things productive, to learn and explore. So with these two things in mind, when I initially started learning about EN and DPR, what struck me the most was recognizing this abundant passion in someone that I had yet to experience. Observing that quality in a person and what they were doing with it is what ultimately lit the fire that I spoke of earlier. What I wanted to mention after more months had passed, which included me learning more about bipolar disorder. There's far more nuance in this topic that I could fit into this section of the video, because frankly it could be its entire own video. What I will say is, after watching videos on the subject and reading many first-hand experience stories of people who have bipolar or who know loved ones that have it, there is the depressive cycle, and I learned about hypomania and mania. I learned more about psychosis, pressured speech, actually being forced to go days without sleep, the brain causing one to be swept up in a myriad of ideas you have that after you come out of an episode, you can't even recollect the thought patterns you took to get there in the first place, and much, much more. These thoughts reminded me of something else another person named Annabelle said in an interview she did with my friend East about living with bipolar type 2.
When the juxtaposition between your depressive period, which the bipolar already makes worse, is also contrasted with this hypermania, which you have illusions of grandeur, flights of fancy, feel so confident, to crash and have that juxtaposition, I can only imagine makes that depressive period so much worse.
Yeah, for sure. I remember when I was first diagnosed, because I was always told that I was, like, as a little kid, that I was quite clever or gifted or whatever. And I had all those abilities, and yes, when I was doing well, I was doing really, really well. But when I wasn't, I really wasn't. And then when I learned about my diagnosis, I thought, does that mean that even my achievements weren't real because it was just my illness? So really what I'm truly capable of deep down inside is only what I'm capable of on my average day, where I'm neither hypomanic nor depressed, which felt pretty awful. So that is definitely true. But it's also, you then learn with time that is not true.
As she mentions, she goes on to say that over time you learn that that's not true. One of the things Ian would mention while on tour recently,
so as many of you know,
as you know, I have bipolar.
I do have bipolar.
It's one of the best,
parts about me.
And gathering from various interviews, a certain side to his portrayal of living with this is to spin the stigmatized narrative on its head and show the beautiful aspects that can also come with living with the experiences he has.
So Beautiful was, I guess, very inspired by the idea that something so dark and sinister is actually something that's usually the most misunderstood.
이런 거를 이 세상한테 보여줄 수 있는 뭔가 좀 이 어둠 속에 아름다움이 있는데 어떻게 멈추겠어요, 솔직히.
With this in mind, as I've learned more about this topic over the past few months, I'd like to share how I believe my initial perspective upon seeing all that Ian has accomplished came with prior ignorance. I'm someone who deals with chronic depression and occasional unaliving ideation. I'm sorry, censoring is getting crazy over here. So I remember my verbiage when I first started learning about DPR and Ian was, wow, he does all of this and deals with being bipolar as well. And on a base level, that's true. That statement is still true, and I've seen others express similar sentiments in how they draw motivation from that while dealing with their own various struggles. But I've been growing in understanding that this art with these achievements and living with bipolar disorder are not mutually exclusive.
Went to a therapist, and it was apparently like a bipolar thing. It was genetics. It's just that my cell just kind of triggered during puberty. So my God, like trying to control that was just a hell of a ride. Yeah.
And what role does music play in managing that?
So one of the coping mechanisms that they offered me was to channel that through creativity. You hear it all the time, but creativity and bipolar or depression, they come hand in hand.
Parts of this abundant creativity I've witnessed is from manic highs and lows. It's in part from having to endure several nights without sleep that I would only ponder about before.
During a manic episode, the longest time I've gone without sleep was either 7 or 8 days.
A lot of fast talking and grandiose feeling.
It doesn't matter the direction you're going, you're 100% and then some in that direction.
Yes, that is correct. I just don't like it how a lot of the times I make some of these crazy decisions, whether it be my highs or lows.
It's just like I've mentioned before.
I would just encourage anybody who kind of has that sort of habit of seeing creators and other people in neat little boxes that they can't have any wiggle room out of to try and just not have that kind of expectancy. And it helps you better appreciate a person as a whole and all their sides.
People are all-encompassing. Those who have depression are not solely their depression. The same goes with PTSD, BPD, and those who have bipolar disorder are not solely their BD. Speaking not just on Ian, but anyone, including my followers, who might have BD or something similar, the beauty that someone can see in your work, even if parts of it come from manic highs or depressive lows, doesn't make it any less real. Just like those mood swings, whether at times are welcomed or not, while they are real and they are a part of you, They're not all of you. They're part of how you experience life and the world. And if you choose to channel those experiences through poetry, music, painting, the tangible way someone finds to express it is just as real and all-encompassing as the person it's coming from. For any kind of condition, be it mental or personality related, to only romanticize it is dismissive and unfair. And to only deny its existence is also dismissive and unfair. I think the goal should be, when learning about a person, is to acknowledge these intricate parts, how they come with both good and bad, and proceed from there. Finally, where do I find myself as I've been going through this next phase of Awaken Moxie? It's interesting. Sometimes I'll have people ask things like, what's your angle with Awaken Moxie? And I find it kind of funny because it came as a means of survival, as a way for me to directly combat depression. I know earlier I expressed living without passion, but there was a time a few years ago I was riding in the car with a friend, and we were headed home after a party. I was rather inebriated at the time, and we were talking about various topics when they eventually asked me, what are you passionate about? And the answer that came from my inebriated state, with no hesitation, was people. As I continue Awaken Moxie and learn more about myself through my own efforts, as well as interacting with the people who are watching, I've been gradually understanding that maybe that is what it truly is. People in the sense of learning and observing all the different ways we intersect, the different ways we think, and the tangible ways we find to express that. As I'm learning more about that, I'm developing a clearer vision for what I want in the future. You could say Unus Annus was the catalyst for my exploration, and now DPR is this guidance into the next phase of learning how to unearth passion and combine it with discipline. As of right now, Awaken Moxie has essentially just been me trying things. As I've been exploring these different areas of creativity behind the scenes, I'm understanding these fun and complex things that I have planned will at times involve various talents outside of myself. Photographers, musicians, graphic artists, so on. Right now, in my phase 2, I'm still very much learning and planting those seeds for what I'd love to show you in the future. I wish I could show you what I have in mind now, but honestly, in its full extent, it may be 10 plus years in the making. But that's okay. I have to let myself keep learning until one day the music that I hear and the visuals I see in my head can be brought here. Most people don't really consider the bananas budget that goes into making a film, how much lighting, post-production editing, many other things go into making something give off a specific feel or message. Till then, as I have up until this point, I'll keep doing the best I can with what I have. I'll add in a few words from DPR Live that have stuck with me as I start wrapping up.
Everyone should have a shot at living their best life. If you want to live your best life, you need to be your own designer of your life. If you don't decide to take control of designing your life and creating the life you want, you're just going to be a part of somebody else's plan. Being able to choose how you want to live your life is the first step to living.
With that, I'll continue working and learning. I've seen and have been experiencing what can happen when you give yourself a chance, and I've seen what can happen when you give yourself time. Any encouraging and kind sentiment you've shared with me, be it directly through a comment or DM, or even indirectly, thank you. You're helping me as I navigate my way in life. I hope all the best for you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye!